Rotterdam Centraal is, let's be frank, a station whose achievements can be listed on the back of a stamp. It was big, got bombed, was rebuilt, got bigger, was rebuilt again, got bigger still, and now it looks like one of those containers you get your chips in. That being said, the ICE, Eurostar and Thalys services stop here, so at least it's doing something right. And on the first weekend of July 2022, the station hosted a special guest. A special train. A train that was especially booked to stand at the station for the weekend. This is the ICNG, or Intercity New Generation. Creativity is not one of the NS's strong suits. 2 5-car sets were displayed in Rotterdam for the benefits of enthusiasts and potential travellers who could have a chance to board the train, take pictures, and just generally get really nerdy about it all. Built by Alstom, the units are based on their Coradia design. Coradia? With modifications to best suit the Dutch network. Although that is to varying degrees of success, but I'll get back to that later. The units are not in service yet, though the first members were already on Dutch metals in May 2020. Nicknamed Wasps, the units are to replace the famous Koploper ICMM units, which themselves originate from the late 1970s. On top of that, the Wasps are to relieve the Bombardier TRAXX locomotives from their service on the Dutch high-speed line, or the Dutch people that sort stretch just on the outskirts of Breda. The TRAXX locos are fine machines, but they're not well suited for a high-speed line. Their top speed is 160 km an hour. To put that into perspective, an EM2's top speed is 145 km an hour, and the average speed in the Netherlands on surface trains is 130. The story of the Wasps actually comes directly after the introduction of the TRAXX, which is a very difficult thing to keep saying, I just realised, so I'm going to use TRAXX as the plural. Where was I? In 2012, the Vira train service between Schiphol and Antwerp, debuted new multiple units designed and built in Italy. Classified V250 but nicknamed Albatros, they were a complete failure. The units served for less than a year, and their failure caused both the end of Vira, the service, and the operating company operating it. But even today the term Vira will be met with uproarious laughter in the Netherlands. As a hotfix, the NS had to lease locomotives starting with 12 but eventually totaling 45. They retain their German classification E186. The locomotives are only planned to work until a replacement becomes available, and that replacement is the Wasp. 2 types of Wasps will be delivered, these 5-car sets and 8-car sets, making them the longest electric multiple unit, or EMU, in use in the Netherlands in terms of number of carriages. But what of the inside? Well, Alstom has modified the units as such to make them as accessible as possible. The floor extends to always be at platform level when the doors open, the doors themselves are wider, and the toilets come with annoying electric sliding doors and hinged variants. On the subject of doors, I think it looks a bit messy when the main doors are opened. At the risk of giving vandals ideas, I can already see people stuffing empty bags of crisps and bottles in there when all the guts are exposed. Inside the carriages there are 4 compartments that make up the train. Business, Silence, Meet and Greet, and finally First Class. Business has bigger tables, Silence has open and closable doors, Meet and Greet has lounges, and First Class has rich people. Seats are pretty nice, definitely take some getting used to when you've travelled on nothing but worms, but in a good way. As I sat down, I realised that the headrest was a bit high up for me, but at least I could sit comfortably. Seats are lit, and not in the street sense, but very literal, and I did spy sockets and USB charging ports. So that was the good, now for the suboptimal. There are only 2 places for wheelchairs, located in the same carriage halfway along the train. The floor in sections of the train is raised, making the path too narrow for most wheelchairs. Heck, I struggle to make my way through the train, and I'm an animated stickman. Personally, I'm not a fan of the doors used for accessible toilets. I'm all for accessibility on public transport, it's public transport after all. But name me one person who has never had trouble with these doors. There is very little standing room. Next to the doors there are like 4 handholds if the train gets crowded, and the Wasps are to work the Den Haag to Eindhoven line, so they will. you will get the same effect as in a crowded bus, where people just kinda shimmy next to each other. Due to the modular nature of the unit, you feel sectioned off, dare I even say claustrophobic, not helped by the insulation slightly muffling any sound. Finally, the seats are too high. The raised floor sections have seats elevated compared to the rest of the train, and even I bump my head on the ceiling when standing up there. Now, I'm sure I don't have to tell you what with the angle of the footage and all, but I am what many people would call, what's the phrase, a hobbit? The average Dutch person is much taller than me, so they will definitely suffer some bumpage. But who knows, maybe a miracle will happen and these features are slightly adjusted when the trains enter service. It is, in my eyes, nearly the perfect train, although I've not been on board a ICNG as it is moving, so in the end we will all have to wait and see. So, the ICNG. A train with both a long story and great ambitions of replacing well-liked units and releasing powerful locomotives. Here is hoping it won't release Vira from laughingstock duty.